Global systems rarely announce when they are changing. There is no warning sound, no formal declaration, no single moment when everyone agrees something is different. Most of the time, the world looks exactly the same. Trade continues. Markets function. Institutions operate. And yet, beneath that surface continuity, the logic holding the system together begins to shift. This documentary is not about collapse. It is about something quieter. How global systems change before they break. How power diffuses before it disappears. And how confidence moves before anyone notices it has. The belief about global power. Most people believe global power changes through confrontation. One bloc rises, another declines, a new order replaces the old one. This belief feels logical. History is often taught that way. Empires fall, alliances form, power transfers hands. So when people hear about BRICS, the assumption comes quickly that this is a challenge, that it is a rival, that a new global order is forming. But global power does not shift simply because countries group together. It shifts when the systems underneath them stop working the same way. That distinction changes everything. How global systems really hold power. For most of modern history, global order was not maintained by agreement, it was maintained by structure. Trade cleared through shared channels. Finance flowed through familiar institutions. Settlement relied on trusted mechanisms. Participation mattered more than ideology. Countries did not need to agree politically, they needed access. Access created dependence. Dependence created stability. As long as the system worked smoothly, disputes were absorbed. The system did not eliminate conflict, it contained it. Over time, this structure became deeply centralized, not visibly centralized, operationally centralized. Fewer pathways, fewer standards, fewer alternatives, efficiency increased, so did reliance. And reliance slowly became asymmetrical. This is where pressure began. What BRICS actually represents. BRICS is often described as an alliance, but structurally it is not unified by ideology, not unified by governance, not unified by long-term vision. It is unified by constraint. The countries grouped under BRICS operate inside a global system they did not design, and they experience that system differently than those closest to its center. This is not about opposition. It is about optionality. Global systems distribute power by determining who has alternatives. When access feels guaranteed, participation is easy. When access feels conditional, incentives change. BRICS exists because dependence began to feel uneven. This becomes important later. From dependence to optionality, countries do not abandon global systems lightly. Exit is costly. Isolation is risky, so they adapt instead. They look for redundancy. They build parallel pathways. They reduce reliance without severing ties. This is how systems begin to fragment. Not through rebellion, through duplication. BRICS is not an attempt to overthrow the global order. It is an attempt to function within it more selectively. That distinction matters. How fragmentation actually begins. Most people believe systems fragment after they fail. In reality, fragmentation comes first. Systems fragment when participants begin asking a quiet question. What happens if access changes? Not because it has, but because it might. This question alters behavior. Countries hedge, institutions diversify, mechanisms multiply. Nothing breaks, but nothing remains singular. Fragmentation does not replace systems, it layers them. Duplication before division. Fragmentation begins when duplication becomes affordable. Technology lowers barriers, coordination becomes easier, alternatives become viable. Not total replacements, partial substitutes, enough to reduce exposure. Participants continue using the dominant system, but they stop relying on it exclusively. That subtle change reshapes incentives, and incentives reshape systems. The cost of fragmentation. Fragmentation is not free. Efficiency declines, coordination slows, complexity increases, but resilience improves. Systems become less fragile to single points of failure. This trade-off is unavoidable. No system can maximize efficiency and resilience at the same time. Fragmentation shifts the balance. When confidence was centralized for decades, confidence had a center, not a person, a structure. Settlement systems, clearing networks, reserve mechanisms. Participants trusted the system because everyone else did. Confidence was reinforced by concentration. The more people relied on the same pathways, the more credible those pathways became. Trust became automatic, embedded, invisible. Centralized confidence simplified decisions. Participants did not evaluate alternatives, they assumed continuity. This allowed global systems to scale, but it also created sensitivity. Because confidence concentrated in one place becomes fragile under stress. Confidence as a structural assumption in modern systems. Confidence is not emotional. It is an assumption about continuity, that access will remain available, that settlement will occur, that obligations will be honored. These assumptions are rarely questioned, until fragmentation introduces choice. This becomes important later. When confidence spreads as parallel systems grow, confidence disperses. Participants no longer place all trust in one mechanism. They distribute it selectively. Confidence becomes situational. Different systems are trusted for different purposes. This changes behavior. Uniformity disappears. Distributed confidence behaves differently. It is cautious, conditional, context-dependent. Participants no longer ask, does the system work? They ask, which system works here? That shift changes how power operates. Authority in a fragmented world in centralized systems, authority is implicit. Rules are followed because they are standard. In fragmented systems, authority must be earned repeatedly. Participants compare options. Compliance becomes practical, not automatic. Authority becomes conditional. This does not weaken systems, it changes their logic. Stress without a center. When stress appears in centralized systems, responses are coordinated, signals are clear, actions are unified. In fragmented systems, responses diverge. Some participants withdraw, some shift pathways, some adapt locally. Stress does not propagate uniformly. It fragments. This reduces the risk of total failure, but it complicates stabilization. There is no single lever. Why confidence does not re-centralize. Once confidence disperses, it rarely returns to a single center. Participants remember alternatives. They remember optionality. Reliance becomes a choice. Confidence becomes sticky at the edges. It does not flow back easily. What the system becomes. When confidence is no longer centralized, stability becomes situational. Coordination becomes negotiated. Power becomes distributed. The system still functions, but it no longer moves as one. It adapts quietly, unevenly. The unresolved reality: BRICS did not create this shift. Fragmentation did not cause it. The decentralization of confidence did not start it. They are all responses to systems that became too efficient, too centralized, and too dependent on shared assumptions. Global systems do not end this way. They transform, not through collapse, through choice. Power once flowed through centralized trust, but trust now lives in multiple places. And systems built on shared confidence behave differently when confidence is no longer shared. The system still exists, but it no longer operates by the same rules. If global power no longer depends on a single system, what determines stability when confidence is no longer centralized?